All right. We're gonna keep going with it. It's 30 seconds after the previous video was recorded. We're currently now in what is known in the modern era as Book 8 of the Iliad. The reason I always say what's known in the modern era, by the way, is because when Homer told the story, and even after that, they didn't have books of the Iliad. It was just one big story, and they classified the sections of it based on what was happening in that section. And in I think it was like when it was written down for the Athenians, like 500 years later, that they assigned each book one of the Greek letters of the alphabet, which we now refer to as book 1, 2, 3, or 5. So book 8 doesn't really mean anything except for the way that we classify it. Anyway, we're in that, and Priam and Paris are giving their offer to the Achaeans to hopefully allow them to, end the war or give some kind of a respite to them. Here we go. And thus departed godlike Idaeus. But before he could go, Priam pulled him back for one more thing, and said to him, Idaeus, I have only just now, I feel that I have been influenced by one of the gods, that I have been granted divine wisdom, for we have many unburied men out on the battlefield. And as I said, I grieve every day for these men of our city. And even if the Achaeans should not grant our plea for peace, though we give them all the treasures that Paris has brought back from Sparta, and all his household stores besides, and you may tell them that I will give as many household stores as I have as well, to bring an end to this war. But even if they should not do that, then at least ask them if they should offer the courtesy of allowing us to bury our dead, to have a stalemate for a day or 2 or 3, so that we may go through the battlefield and bring back the bodies of those who have fallen, to allow their wives and fathers and sons and daughters to have some sort of closure, at least for the ones who can still be recognized. And thus Priam, that son of Laomedon, sent out Idaeus on his errand. And across the plains of Troy, all the way through, past the great oak tree, past the river Scamander, and onto the beach where the Achaeans had their beaked ships, those fast black racing ships, all the Achaeans were in council. And the son of Atreus, that high lord marshal of the Achaeans, was there making speech and giving the morning meat. And each one of them was in attendance. And Nestor had been speaking and giving his stories of times past and of glories attained, and of many old wise pieces of wisdom from the days of yore, as he, the 3rd generation of ruler, had seen 3 generations of men rise up and had ruled over all of them in sandy Pylos. And just as he was finishing speaking, out came from the front of the tent one of the attendants of Agamemnon, Eurybates, that herald of his, telling him and bringing along with him Idaeus of the Trojans, who had with him a message from holy Priam, the last chance for a safe return of all the men of his city. And Idaeus spake, O great Lord Marshal of the Achaeans, and all ye assembled Achaean leaders, I come with words from Paris, Alexandros, the son of Priam, as well as Hector, the prince of the city, and Priam, the great Lord himself. Alexander, would he had died before he brought Helen back, promises that though he will not return the woman, he will give all the household stores that he had taken from your good brother Menelaus, and he will give all the stores of his own personal treasury besides, as will Priam, the king of golden Troy. But if you will not grant that this end the slaughter of all the Achaeans and Trojans alike, and that this tearful war must continue, then we ask that at least we may have each of us, each of our armies, 3 days to bury the dead and search the battlefield for corpses, and to bring back each man for his wife and his father and his son, to grieve him properly, and for you Achaeans to do the same. As it is not meet for all of these men to be picked upon by dogs and vultures, as they are, there has been enough tearful fighting. So saith the Lord of the city, and his son Alexandros, as well as Hector, the prince of holy Troy. Then, before any could say a word, Diomedes, the son of Tydeus, stood up, and he said, I hope it will not be unmeet that I shall say a word before any of these more experienced captains here, for I may be the youngest, though I have much experience under my belt already. And though a man may be younger in years, he may be older in spirit, and I think that my lineage counts for something, as the son of noble Tydeus, who had taken on that city of 7-gated Thebes, and whose task I and Sthenelus and all of our attendants had finished. Thus, I say, we should not take this paltry gift from the Trojans. Who knows how much treasure they still have in their stores either way? I would not even take this treaty deal even if they had given back Helen with all her gifts and all her loveliness. I do not want to anger the great Menelaus, but even you, Menelaus, must be able to see that we will be able to take this war with or without. This is not a question of fierceness on the battlefield. It is only a question of time. And though they have Hector and Aeneas and Paris, for whatever he may count for, we have many a strong captain who has wetted his spear with the blood of countless Trojans. And I say that even a fool can see that this city will not be saved by anything that can happen on the battlefield or off. Troy will fall, and we will see it razed to the ground, down to the last child and the woman with babe in her arms. They will be taken to our cities to serve our meat and mead, and the towers and the walls and the houses of Troy will crumble just as its kingdom and its glory and splendor has already done before us. Thus spoke the son of Tydeus, and all the men shouted to hear this, each one with the heart fired in his breast to see the end of this fighting and to bring forth a glorious victory in arms. Thus did Agamemnon speak. Well, Idaeus, you have heard it from the mouth of one of our most fearsome warriors, for you will have heard of the son of Tydeus, who has caused many a widow's grief on the battlefield yesterday and many a day before. But he has not the least honor among us, I say, and my thought is equal to his. I will not take this plea bargain, but I will not grudge the Trojans the ability to bury their dead. For those who have already fallen on the battlefield hold no status among either army, and should not be counted as foes, nor should they be grudged the correct funeral rites among their people. So let your cities' families and all the city's people mourn its dead properly, and we will do the same for ours, and we will bring the bones back to each of the wives and the fathers of the noble men who has lost a son in this terrible conflict. And so Idaeus returned to the shining city of Troy, dulled in its splendor over this 9 years of conflict and dust kicked up by soldiers at arms. But soon was the son of Neleus to speak up and to give his wily plan that would allow a breathing space for the Achaeans and a greater protection for their camp. All right, I kind of left the door open there to have Nestor speak up. We're getting in a lot of stuff here. As you can see, I skipped all of this. The last time I told this story, I skipped the entire... Again, I don't remember if it's in book 8, but wherever it's supposed to be, it has to happen before book 9, and it did not happen. And all of this stuff is pretty important because of what's about to come. By the time book 9 gets here, you'll see more about it. I don't want to say too much in case, I don't know who's doesn't know the story of the Iliad and this is like their first time doing it. I hope you enjoy it if that's the case, but I don't expect that anyone's really watching these. But the part where Priam and Paris and them have their big meeting, and then they present this offer to the Achaeans, and Diomedes like blatantly refuses it, and Agamemnon, says they can bury the dead. That's all pretty important because we need to have the time for the Achaeans to build their ramparts, that's part of what's going to be presented in the next episode. So I'm pretty happy with how all that went. It was interesting, like when there's not that many parts in Homer's Iliad where a character kind of like addresses another one who's in the room and like, he's making a speech to somebody else, but then he says like, sorry, Agamemnon or whatever, to some like other character he's not talking to, and then he goes back to speaking to them. I've done it a few times in mine where Antenor says like, I'm sorry, Paris, but we have to give back Helen, and then he goes back to talking to Priam. And then here Diomedes does his speech and he says like, I'm sorry, Menelaus, but like, even if we got Helen back, we probably can't, like, we can't stop the war machine now because we're too close to winning. And I think that it's not necessarily Homeric, but it's not egregious, I don't think, and it works dramatically because it at least acknowledges the person in the room. The way people have dialogue scenes in the Iliad and Odyssey is not how we would think of dialogue, like a back and forth in the modern era. It's usually that one character gives one huge speech where they say everything they're going to say, and then the next character gives one huge speech where they say everything they're going to say, and then they fight, and then they, whatever is resolved. It's not like he said this, and then he said this, and then he said this again, and then he addressed the thing that guy just said. They don't really have that. So I think that in that sense, it can sometimes be jarring when a character's like completely silent through a scene where they were probably reacting. Like if it was in a movie, Menelaus would hear the thing about not taking Helen back, and it would cut to a reaction shot of him where he would like get up from the table and be like upset. And I'm not saying I want to make this like a movie, but I'm just saying that it bears having some moment where like a character making a speech acknowledges what other characters might be thinking of what he's saying. For whatever it's worth. It makes it a little less Homeric, but I think it works for mine. Other than that, I thought it worked pretty well. I didn't stray in too many different parts from what, was said. I couldn't remember what they were doing in the meeting before Ideas shows up. So I just had it that Nestor was like regaling them with some story, which, that happens often enough that I would buy that if that was really in the Iliad. And otherwise, I thought it was pretty good. Today, a better day than yesterday, whenever I did the last one, which is good. Again, each day you're going to be better or worse at doing this. It's the same with when I'm doing the language studies stuff. It's the same when I'm doing the game development stuff, or doing any like art stuff. You are not the same quality level every day. You have a good days and bad days, and you just kind of have to like let it all come out in the wash. So you keep doing it when it turns out well, and you keep doing it when it turns out bad, and then hopefully, like in general, that kind of spiking graph goes up as a global thing, but you can't necessarily see it day to day. So today was good. Yesterday, or last time, was bad. Next time might also be bad, but we will hopefully overall continue to get better. So let's keep going from there.